Good morning. It is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. We are here for our first of two monthly Public Broadband Committee meetings, the first Friday and the third Friday. This is the reporting meeting. This is where we get together and look at what happened last month in the business and the project. And uh, it was it's a very tight window because the month ended on Wednesday. So the teams only really had one day to wrap everything up yesterday and send it over. Uh, but you did a good job. We have a lot of stuff to share. Um, Most of it will be, looks like the Dave, Amanda, and Tracy show, uh, unless other folks show up too. Um, Vantage may or may not be here. They're working on a huge response to New York State regarding the MIP project. And I think there's a big shift in our work with MIP this week in that um, because of the transition to an engineering firm and the delays, perceived or not, in the project and the timeline, New York was like, we want some very specific things out of you by these dates. And these dates were yesterday and today. So um, Ray and Brad and Carmen and the team from Vantage are working on those deliverables. We're going to cover what those are. So you, Graham, Tony, know what they are. I think Dan and Jason might already have some idea of what some of those things are. And this Ray on the call might be Ray from Vantage. It might be Ray from somewhere else. I'm not sure.
No, it's right from the town.
I thought it might be. Sometimes Ray from the town is just his town of Dryden as his screen name.
Yep.
All right, let me share this tab. We'll try to run in presentation mode and see how that works, and then if need to switch out of it to look at some other maps and things. All right, so executive summary. Vantage had their site visit April 21st, 22nd, 23rd. This is everything that happened more or less in the month of April and a few other things. We did phases planning. We looked at how we're going to attack everything that has to be done to get the project completed, both for MIP and to finish stuff that was started before MIP and the post MIP project. So we've broken into 6 different phases. Some of these will be running in parallel, and we'll have clear definitions of these over the next 30 days as we bring together what they look like. At a very high level, one of these phases is cleanup work on what is already live and out there. What Vantage found in their assessment from their in-person work here over the last couple of months was there about 200 items that needed fixing in the current network. 200 different places where they had to go and do work. Some examples of these are uh, pole anchors. So when we have a telephone pole, utility pole where we have fiber, the strand that brings the fiber from one pole to another puts a lot of tension on these poles. The original design drawings did not have anchors, which means there was not the bit that goes into the pole or the down line, the guy line, or the anchor that goes a few feet into the ground, or that yellow covering that goes on it so no one trips over it. Those were not in the plan for Syracuse Utilities to do. They also were not in the purchasing plan from Hunt to buy these items. So even if Syracuse is like, hey, we should do this, there was no equipment ordered by Hunt for this task. So we've been working on resolving that problem. Other items that we found, grounding rods. We have dozens of handholds all over town. They're supposed to have grounding rods within them in case of lightning. There also are marker balls that we put into each handhole. That way you can find these handholds, whether it is, 3 feet high of grass and natural weeds in the summer, or 1 to 10 inches of snow in the winter. Each handle should have one of these marker balls that you can detect with a meter to find out where these things are. Otherwise, you're walking around the snow trying to figure out where these handholds are. So like I said, there are about 200 of these items, and that's
Is
part of the phase 1 of cleanup. Go ahead.
is that marker ball something that just sits inside the handhold that can be
Yep.
detected by a
Yep.
yeah, okay.
We buy them in bulk. I think we buy them in packs of like 100 or so. They're not tagged to an individual hole, just as a beacon. that like with the meter, you know, you're close to one that you can go find it. It doesn't say like this is hole XYZ,
Yep.
but they're strong enough that we'll be able to find those.
Got it.
So that's a cleanup phase. We've ordered the material, some materials in, some more of it is coming in. The next phase is we call it the low-hanging fruit. That's everything in the network that has either been started but not yet completed. So these are things like parts of the village of Dryden, parts of just north and west of the village of Freeville, Route 366. There's a bunch of things that were being worked on when we stopped work on February 28th. There's also a high number of uh, apartments, MDUs, mobile home parks, and a few single family homes that need extra support to reach them. So that's part of the second phase is in parallel with the cleanup finish of the stop work is also this low-hanging fruit going to help unlock some of these places where there's more than one home or more than one customer per parcel. The other two phases are within this section are the remaining MIP in Dryden. So everything that's yellow and blue on the map, and then the Dryden non-MIP. So that's everything that's going to come after basically everything that's blue, yellow, and orange on the map in Dryden. So those are the four Dryden phases. In Caroline, there are two main phases. One is kind of the western side of Caroline that'll be serviced out of the Caroline Town Hall, and the other is kind of the southeastern side of Caroline, which will be serviced out of the POP in Speedsville. So we've identified these. We'll put some more definition of what each of these are, timelines, as well as drilling down to individual routes of when we're going to be going to each of these sections.
I just want to make sure I heard what you said correctly.
Go for it.
So you said part of phase, is it 4 in Dryden? You said there's 4 phases in Dryden?
Yeah, Joe, so we call it Dryden A is cleanup work, Dryden B is low-hanging fruit.
Right.
And then the third one is Dryden remaining MIP, yellow, blue, and orange. And then the fourth one is Dryden non-MIP.
All right. So that, that's that 4th phase is the stuff that wasn't colored on the map previously.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So phase 3 is all the stuff that was colored that wasn't already under construction.
That's right.
Yeah. And then so it's the stuff that was started. I got it. I just want to make sure I had it right. Okay.
So yeah, we had a lot of discussion. It was a lot easier to see it once Vantage was here. We did that in-person meeting. We looked at what was going on, what was started. It's kind of like we're doing a lot of stuff in parallel where we're still doing construction planning for MIP as well as this cleanup work, as well as the low-hanging fruit places that are in the green zone that need some engineering support before we can go ahead and bring in the fiber to the home.
Right.
We did in-person site visits. We looked at some existing construction. We looked at all the POPs in Dryden. We looked at where the POPs could be in Caroline. We went through, walked the MDUs, most of the mobile home parks in the green zone, as well as some of the apartment buildings, as well as a couple of challenging installed areas on Hilton and on Dutcher, just to get some boots on the ground. We also met with Chris Damaris, who works for Vantage, who is here in person. He's the one with the white little SUV he's been driving around. He's doing a lot of site work in staking, trying to figure out where on poles we're going to build the next phases. Finally, with Vantage, we did a lot of work on the MIP schedule and budget planning, how this all comes together so we hit the target of 12/31/26. All right, speaking of that, go ahead.
The like where we have all the in-ground handholds, those are all on a map someplace, right? So all that those were accurately mapped and stuff when they looked at it, or
They received maps from Hunt, and they have audited every single location they could find, which is now every single location. And now we have an updated KMZ that says here's where all the handles are.
perfect.
Same thing for all the aerial MSTs. We know where they all are now.
Yeah, and I believe they had to do. It took them a while to get some of those maps, right?
We got most of them the first round. The bigger issue was getting permitting information.
Right.
Hunt dumped everything they had on permitting. But from the time that they submitted those permits to Labella to the time they sent us what they had sent to Labella, they had made changes at the Labella side. So then we had to go and get more permits from Labella and then additional permits from Aerosmith, not the Boston-based rock band, but the engineering firm that does our New York State Department of Transportation permitting. So anytime we cross a state road, we need a New York State permit. That's done through this company called Aerosmith. They're based in the Albany area. They had additional maps and permit information that we didn't have from material Hunt gave us, but had been assigned to them from Hunt. So there were some gaps in mapping and in permitting from what we were provided by Hunt.
Yeah.
So,
'Cause I actually got to look at one of the maps when, what's his name that's in the white van, in the white truck?
Oh, probably Chris.
Chris, yeah, because I talked to him when he was up here. Because right after we did the walkthroughs, I think 2 days later or day later, he was up here on Hanford.
Yeah.
And he showed me some of the maps they had. So yeah, that was good.
Cool.
so Dave, have we ordered all the stuff for the cleanup and they're progressing with that? Is that what we're saying?
We
Or-
have ordered all this stuff. There was a bit of a surprise, I believe on Monday morning. Tracy has the exact timeline when Gray Bar said, we can get you basically everything except for the anchor material, which will be here in August.
Ooh.
And
And we
that's
said, well,
pretty much can't go forward without them
yeah, that's the reason to go
for-
for most of these.
for the anchors. But in the meantime, since then, we have found about a little more than half of them are on their way. They should be here first part of next week. And then we're still looking to find the other half where it's available. They're working on it.
Great.
Now, I talked to Sean Scorzelli from Syracuse Utilities. He said this project from assigned by Hunt, but billed through Gray Bar and then billed to us was done as a not by the hour or by the foot or by the day or by the mile. It was by the task being completed. So his statement was there would be no additional cost for the labor to go in and put these anchors in and the rest of the rods and the balls. Obviously it's going to cut into his profits of the project because he's getting paid a set amount to do all that work, which they probably checked off as being completed per Hunt's direction. But it needs to get done, and the only cost is going to be the equipment materials we need to do the work.
Well, that's
Yeah.
Which
After all,
in the overall scheme of things, that cost is not a whole lot.
right.
yeah. The equipment cost is quite low compared to the overall project cost. Also going forward, everything that Vantage provides to the construction contractors will say, here's everything that has to get done. Here's all material you need. It's either in the yard or in the connex. There's no, they've just done this before. They're not going to have these kind of gaps going forward. All right, we'll talk about the municipal infrastructure program. We still have not signed the GDA. That's the grant disbursement agreement, which means we cannot submit our receipts or our milestone achievements to get the first payment. There's also a few other factors. Now, the biggest reason for that is we're negotiating with New York State on the locations. There are about 2,700 locations in the MIP grant. We've identified probably about 24 questionable locations. Some of them should not be serviced because they are not properties where there's any homes. They're not BSLs. Some of them are off the grid, I guess homes or sheds or shacks or camps. Some of them are non-houses. There's garages, there's cell towers, there's a radio tower. Now, because some of these are very rural locations, the cost of reaching some of these is quite expensive, and they were not in the budget provided by Hunt to New York State last year. So until we have a clear agreement on which ones we have to reach, we can't sign the agreement that says we're going to reach them with the budget that they provided us, which means there's going to be some movement. Either they're going to reduce the number of locations we have to reach and keep the budget the same, or they'll give us more budget to reach all these locations, or there's some mix where they'll give us a little bit more money and reduce some of the locations, and we'll get to a happy place where we can say we can reach these within this budget. As of today, if we said yes to everything that's in the current GDA, we would end the project around $1.5 million over budget.
So Vantive figured out how much more it would cost to get to all those locations. Okay, great.
Yeah, very detailed, like these roads aerial, these roads underground, this house, this building, very specific. So we brought all that to New York State, and they're pouring through the information as we're giving it to them to figure out how do they make this right.
Mhm.
It's not a blanket like just skip all these locations. Some of them are we want to reach, but it's going to be very costly. Other ones we don't need to reach because they already have fiber. It does go against the goal of the project, which is to reach 100% of the locations in the town of Caroline. But when it costs, $200,000 to reach a single house that already has fiber from a different direction, it doesn't really make sense fiscally as good government to spend that much money to reach a house that already has fiber. So we're working through that. It's a lot of back and forth. It means boots on the ground. Mark Whitmer and I and the team from Vantage were out driving all over Caroline. I went back out there with the team from Vantage to drive all over Dryden to find more locations, identify these kind of questionable places. Before I move on, Dan might have his hand raised.
Yeah, I was just thinking, we talked about this earlier, Dave, but if we could get CAO to agree to some sort of practical metric on these more costly outlying addresses. I mean, I understand the impetus behind connecting everybody, but I think that's great. But if we could ask them to, consider, some sort of a way to quantify whether we should really go to every house, if it's, the distance is unreasonable, the cost is unreasonable, if there's all the other alternatives, I don't know, potential for growth. And
Yeah.
if they were willing to contemplate this, because we're inventing the wheel with this program, right? And
Yeah.
and so this could come up again. And I just feel like if we could just establish, look, we all understood that we wanted 100%, but at some point, it becomes a boondoggle.
But it's also delaying everything. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Brad Penny at the meeting with CAO did ask that question. Or it may be Dave may have asked it too, but Brad brought it up. So as I recall, we didn't get a reply. They are just looking for more information on, which addresses are served, which aren't, and stuff. So I agree, and yeah, we need a practical metric to allow us to address. I mean, when you go out like we did and look at these addresses, it's like, okay, it's really obvious that this place is served by Hafley and you have to come in through another county to get there. It's ridiculous. So totally agree. It should be able to come up with something, but it's going to be nuanced because, we all remember when we had the conversation with Joshua Breitbart, it was a philosophy of reaching everyone and providing municipal broadband. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what Mark said. And we wanted to be able to reach all the unserved and underserved and served on the way to reaching the unserved and underserved, and have 100% of Caroline because it just helps with the customer base. Like to build out to these locations and not reach the ones that are on the way to those locations. You just need you need to be able to reach those customers for the revenue to make the whole thing sustainable. And New York State and Josh Breitbart agreed with us on that philosophy. But I also think we should be able to say that philosophy doesn't actually function as an entity to spend public money, $200,000 perhaps, to reach a location that's already being served by another provider. Like it's just not good. And there's really only like 2 locations, one on Weston and Caroline and that one on Braley Hill. that are expensive to reach that already have fiber. There's a handful, as I mentioned, that are off the grid hunting cabins or even abandoned products or abandoned housing. It's probably about 10 of those. And then there's like this pair of houses on Melnick Road that we should bring fiber to because they don't have any options and they are in the town of Caroline. So we're kind of focusing it more and more and more down to a couple different cases that they have to make a call on. Now, kind of on the side, I asked them like of the 102,000 locations that are under the MIP grants in New York State, it seems surprising that Caroline and Dryden found like 20 out of our 2,700, and that's the only 20 out of the whole 102,000 locations. And they're like, "Yep, you're the only ones. Like everything else is totally covered." I'm like, I have doubts that that's true. Like this is to reach rural broadband in places where the FCC data is not great, and that's the reason.
So yeah, Dave, I thought, can't we update the FCC information for those locations and they would come off MIP? I mean, the MIP.
Yes, so we can challenge locations,
Uh-huh.
and it can take anywhere from days to weeks to months to years for a challenge to be processed. So they're like, just challenge them. Like we challenge them, but I still don't feel like we want to get into an agreement where we've challenged locations, but they're contractually, we're obligated to reach them.
We're talking about state government. Everything
But
takes forever.
I think it is federal, actually.
Yeah, FCC is.
That's the problem. I know we tried to get an address where they don't really have access. You know, Spectrum will say they'll come for $25,000, but
Right.
you know, and we couldn't get that one fixed even. So we sent in the changes, and they just didn't really do anything with it. So
I mean, and it's like, oh, it's just trivial. It's just FCC data, but like that is the key information that tells us and tells them if they should fund us getting rural broadband to that location. So it's super important, and you know, you're talking about two towns with 7,000 plus parcels. And that's just two towns out of of New York State that has 60 counties, and it's a one at a time thing. You have to look at each parcel and say, there's no house here. It looks like there's a house. Google Maps shows a house. That Google map is 8 years old from the satellite, and that's not off the grid, but they can't tell. So the data is bad. We're working our way through it. I think based on the homework that we're sending them this week, that we should be a lot closer in the next 2 weeks with them with decisions and being able to move forward. Those meetings are every Tuesday from 1:30 to 2 in the afternoon. If you want to join us and hear how it goes, you're welcome to. Basically, it should be a public meeting as far as how it's operating. It's all town project and New York State people working on it. Let me hit a couple more things on this monthly summary. We are still at no change in the 1,729 parcels, just under 30% of the town. We now have 383 paying customers, so we added 24 in April. We also had 42 inbound requests in April. And as I said last month, because it happened, I think the day after we met, Tracy and I went door to door in the village of Dryden and visited 25 businesses and found some really good interest. I don't know if any of those have signed up yet, but there was interest. Probably just needs a little follow-up to keep those things moving forward, which is kind of expected from a door-to-door sales experience. This is the high-level goals for the year. We're now in April. We were expecting 65 locations. We only added 22. So we're now at 383 with a deficit from our goal of 114. This is primarily because we're not adding more green zone and tapping into those 1,000+ people who've already signed up who are in purple, who are not in the green zone yet, as well as just, green zone usually means people who've never even thought about signing up will then sign up because now they're in the green. I think as we get through some of these low-hanging fruit, getting through some of these mobile home parks, it's going to give us access to tap into some of these, as well as just hitting that remaining MIP, the yellow and blue parts of the map over the next few months. We talked about MIP already. This is the high level view of what it looks like. Everything that's in red and all the purple dots are the MIP addresses prior to the 60 plus bead addresses. So lots of fiber to be added in throughout town, both towns. The MIP scoreboard, we're now at 35 MIP installs, and we are still only 10 months into this somehow, with 20 months to go. So there's still some time left on the clock. It seems like it's going fast, but there's still quite a bit of time and a lot more planning and design is being done now than was being done previously. So I feel more comfortable based on the talking to both Vantage and Syracuse Utilities, the number of miles in the project and the timeline. They feel like there's no major conflict. Like doing 140 miles in the next 18 to 20 months, not a big deal. It's well within the abilities of the design, construction, engineering, splicing teams. We'll continue to update this as we get more and more data from Vantage. All right, we're going to go through the team reports, the construction items. Because of the work that we're doing, the homework for this week for New York State, I'm going to cover what that homework is instead of going through the detail. But I did meet with Vantage, so starting next month, they'll have their own slides where they'll be reporting on permitting, construction, as well as these one-off low-hanging fruit projects. Let's start with customer base with Amanda. Put some dollar signs in here, Amanda. Go for it.
Good morning. So as Dave said, we had 22 new installs. The 3 minus are one was somebody moved, one is two that moved, and one customer that we did a shut off because they hadn't paid their bill, and they haven't called to turn it back on. So we're going to follow up with them just to get the equipment back. Just no response, even when we were trying to contact them about their bills. So we're not really sure, but I know their service is turned off. So that's the 3 minuses. For that, no additional commercial customers during the month of April. So that is that slide. Any questions?
No.
Oh,
I mean,
That's a lot of,
I don't see the, if a person wasn't paying their bill, it's not really a loss, is it?
Not financially.
No.
I mean, yes, it's a -1 on the subscriptions, but if they weren't paying their bill, it's not like we really lost anything.
Yeah, but
Well, we go ahead, Amanda.
it's me and who's helping doing the billing. And I say, okay, after 2 months, we're going after them a little more harder. Because the first month, like sometimes it's just making sure their emails coming through, like that type of situation. But 2 months, I'm going to start saying, okay, well, now I need payment or we will shut your service off. Trying not to get out to 3. Most people are, once we make that, hey, we're going to shut your service off, they start going, oh, okay, yeah, let me take care of that. Or sometimes you just have to get to the right email or right phone number. It can be that simple too. We just have the wrong contact information.
Right.
hey, Amanda, is 18 commercial in 1 month? Is that a high number? That seems like a lot.
It's residential.
Oh,
Yeah, the
So
top
it's
half of
22 total for residential.
I was looking, let's see, number of subscriptions.
That's current, what we've
Oh,
had
that's the
over.
total. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great to have 18 sign up in 1 month on the commercial side. We'd be okay
It
with
would
that.
be great to install 18 in 1 month. Let's just say it that way.
So when you said there's not really a loss, we do pay for installation. So that customer who we terminated, we did pay installation. Installations cost around $1,000, which means at the average of $50, $52, average of $50, it takes us 20 months before we recoup the cost of that free installation.
That's true. So, so that install did cost us something. Yeah.
We did run a drop to their house from Pole or from the MST. I think it was probably a lower than average cost install based on where I think that customer is, but nonetheless, we will lose out on the recouping the cost of the installation. Now, we're going to leave that drop there, and we're going to get the equipment back, hopefully, which means when someone moves into that location, if this person moved out, we won't have to pay for that part again.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we have a customer in the Freeville area who is selling their house. They have Dryden Fiber. A new person's going to come in and want Dryden Fiber. There's going to be no installation cost on behalf of Clarity Connect because the
Right.
equipment will be there. It's going to be left there for the next customer, the next person who's buying or renting from that location. So the only cost will be Integrity doing the setup, which doesn't cost us anything. It's a fixed part of our monthly fee.
Right.
We're probably at around 400 total people who've ever been customers, at least 390. Given we lost probably about a dozen over the last 2 years for here and there. Just as a note, I don't know if it's anywhere else in this report. 1 year ago on May 1st, we had 40 customers. So in 1 year, we are around 10 times more customers. It won't be like that every year. But we did have a huge growth this year. So it was pretty remarkable to go from 40 to 400 in 12 months. Anything else, Amanda? All right, I'm just going to cover some of the things to give you an idea of what New York State was asking for. This is like the raw request from them. So they asked us for 7 different pieces of information. Start with location data. Of the 2,735 locations of the project, how many are not true BSLs? So these things like radio towers, cell towers, barns, or sheds. We provide them 4 of those. We gave them another handful. We've also submitted challenges for 7 or 8 more beyond the 4 that we initially submit challenges for.
Dave, what's a BSL?
It is a serviceable location, like a broadband serviceable location. Basically,
okay.
it's supposed to be a house that should have broadband.
Okay.
Or have residents. They love abbreviations. So basically, the idea from Connect All and probably from the FCC is that when it comes to rural broadband, you should not have to bring broadband to an address if there's nothing on that address to receive the broadband, which would require them to have electricity. So if they're off the grid, it shouldn't be a BSL. The other question I had was, of the 106 plus 3 locations for which additional funding is requested, which ones are not true BSLs? So it's the subset of this, and which ones are already served. So as I mentioned, in the town of Dryden and Caroline, this 106 plus 3 locations, there are a few that are off the grid, and there are a few that are already served that we should not have to go to by our own choice. Like, we don't want to say we're not going to go to every served location, but for some of these really long distance ones that would be expensive to get to, we want to be able to remove those. So that's that information I shared at the top of the call regarding locations. All right, network design update. They want a updated KMZ that shows all the routes, all the poles, splitters, where everything's going to be. So we provided that to them, as well as estimates in terms of aerial underground. It's basically a sanity check in terms of the cost per mile aerial, cost per mile underground. So I can say, like, yeah, your budgets are in line with other projects across the state. Also a revised network design approach, but mostly focusing on the phases and the routes. We're going to hit, as I said earlier, this phase in Dryden and this phase on the western half of Caroline and the eastern half of Caroline with these particular roads with each phase. Just gives a little bit more granularity to the project. With that level of detail, it lets you know if you're ahead or behind. Like if you're driving on a road trip and you're going 100 miles, you're watching the odometer, you're watching your phone to see how many miles you have left. It just gives us a way to mark the distance as we're going down this path with the project and all the miles we're trying to get done. So we know, yeah, we've hit these routes, we've hit these phases.
And Dave,
Go ahead.
Ventive are doing this for New York State. They're giving that information to New York State. So they're completing that now. Is that what that was what their goal was today, or what?
Yeah,
Right.
that has to be provided to them. All of these have to be done by today.
Okay, great. So they must be moving along. That's really good. So
Yeah, it's a lot of progress in the last week, the last 2 weeks. Basically taking everything they've been working on for the last 2 months and packaging it up. Financial update, they wanted a detailed breakdown of the incremental funding request. They also wanted to look at changes in the budget. So they found some places where they were under budget, which we expected that might happen, where they didn't ask for enough. And they found a couple places where they were over budget, where the request from the original engineering firm, they asked for too much money in some parts of the project that we would not need to spend. So they're bringing that into alignment with what we need to actually reach financially to reach the project goals. The other 4 parts of this information that they've requested, the schedule update the project schedule. So this shows like phase by phase when we're going to be doing the permitting, when that switches over to construction, splicing, testing, and then in production by each of these routes across the entire project. Poll applications, they want to know where we are with those. The good news is we've released, I believe, all of the poll applications from the original part of the project. So everything's moving now through Labella. Some of those are now being put out to bid. Some of those are being awarded. So electrical make ready will be starting this month. They identify there will be 4 new permit applications that they're going to be putting together this month and submitting probably by, like I said, by June 1st this month for a few other routes that were not in any plan, but we do need to reach these houses as part of the project. So we have to do some more permits to reach those houses. Procurement, they want to know where we are with procurement, everything we've ordered so far. And then finally, the construction restart, the assessment of all the construction gaps in the schedule. So a lot of information that they want to have a lot of visibility into where we are with the project. So in lieu of the traditional engineering report that says, here's how many new miles we've done, and here's how much we're going to be doing next week and next month, a lot of what we're looking at right now is where we are for planning. Okay. Any questions on engineering? Tracy, you want to talk about installations this month? Any detail?
Yeah, you had 22, I had 24. Probably there's some, Amanda and I did not have any chats about this, so it's probably me that's wrong.
You're pretty
That's-
close because there was one that came in very late on the 30th, so it didn't make it into billing. I know there's
Okay.
at least one, so 23 is probably close and 24 just could be rollover from previous months. So you're probably right, Tracy.
We're in the ballgame. We still have 17 pending, which they keep coming in. I'm every time we get a new somebody, I'm amazed because there doesn't seem to be anything going on, but people are still signing up. So we're moving in the right direction as far as installations. There seem to be somewhere around 15 to 20 scheduled at all times. So we're getting them done, but they're still coming in. I know they're not coming in at the level that we expected, but with the stoppage of the work, I think that's to be expected, but we're moving along. As far as blockers, we have, I think, the best inventory that we've had ever right now, obviously. So we're in good shape there. I think we're just waiting for construction and we can keep moving.
Thanks, Tracy. Any questions on
Anybody have any
installs?
questions?
I do. Have we looked at penetration in the green zones, or I should say not penetration, but
Take rate.
take rate in the green zones, and do we want to consider some kind of marketing push to green zones again?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in the marketing slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right, thanks, Tracy. All right, we're to finance. Amanda.
You will notice construction cost month, basically, our subcontractors had submitted their invoices for late 2024 invoices back to Gray Bar back in early January, but Gray Bar didn't bill us till March. So we have a huge construction expense go out, and that's mainly because of 2024 invoices that just came through. Obviously, the MIP grant was a portion of that, and so that continues to increase our grants receivable for MIP, so that we can submit that once all the pieces are in place for that. So I'm expecting our accounts payable this month to be less than usual for our expenses, and just still needing equipment. There wasn't any work done, so I don't believe there's a lot going out for, but that's still an estimate because I don't have all the bills yet.
So Amanda, I think in the budget, we had planned on receiving a certain amount of money from New York State for reimbursement in the 2025 calendar year.
Yeah, I think I budgeted at least $1 million, maybe 800,000, knowing it would probably be late in the year. So we are, I've expressed to Dave and Vantage, like, I know there's a lot of steps to go, but we do need to get this GDA done once it's ready, because we do need to get that submission in as soon as they give us the green light. And there's some items from Vantage that they're obviously putting together now still, that have to go in for that to go through. So we will, it's probably one of the projects come this summer, is to start gathering all of that to have it ready to go in, because it's going to take time for them to process everything and get us the money back. So our cash has been depleted pretty quickly at this point.
Yeah, because we have the ban for a certain amount of money this year. We expected some money coming in from the state back in December, January timeline. They did not yet have the reimbursement portal configured. They said they expected the portal to be configured and ready to go by the end of January, but we could submit with a signed GDA before then via email, which is crazy because it's like thousands of invoice pages. And then once it was submitted, it would take them verbally, they told us, between 150 and 180 days, so 5 to 6 months. As of April or late March, the portal was still not constructed.
And yeah,
And I believe only Southern Tier Networks out of the 15 MIP project recipients has even tried to submit their first reimbursement. No one else has hit enough of the milestones or has a signed GDA or both to request reimbursement. So we're getting to a place where now, like, best case scenario, month of May we signed the GDA, month of June we put together everything, the invoices that we want reimbursed, as well as all the milestone achievements documented so they can check off that we've done those things. Then the clock would start July 1st with a 5 to 6 month timeline before they send us the first reimbursement check, which would give us November, December. We might not have enough in the 2025 ban to reach all the payments, because at the same time, we're going to be working through construction across both towns.
So can we go get it? The bans are done yearly, isn't that correct?
so first of all, we should say Caroline's money is there, they have it. So any Caroline expenses we're fine on.
That's right.
Dryden's, we will probably borrow from the general fund, which is what we've done in the past. And then when the ban comes in, we, pay the general fund back. Yes, we can do that. I just have to pay attention to cash flow, obviously, in the meantime. So it's a step. It was kind of an unexpected, first of all, with the MIP getting held up, but it's not going to stop work. It's just going to mean some extra. You'll see some notes on this financial reporting of.
Okay.
Thanks, Amanda. Are there any questions on financial?
Continuing on, here's our 12-month, just the operating revenue and operating expenses, again, not including installations. Even though our installations have gone down, but we're still finally at the point that they're still going up, that we are meeting our operating expenses, which is great. Means all the previous months, we're gonna start refilling that bucket that we kind of emptied completely. And went below, drilled a hole in it to get underneath it. So that is a positive, something we've been working for at least a year or so, trying to get to that point. But obviously, there's some other expenses this month that we're going to see in May. We went through the process of Dryden Fiber now has Microsoft licenses for emails and et cetera. So I had to pay for some IT support to get that work done, because I am not an IT person, as those of you that know me know. I work through it, but I'm not expert. So there's always some one-offs that we will see, but at least in general, most expenses are fully covered by the revenue.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great news.
All right. Sales operations, Tracy, back to you. Anything on here you want to cover?
I did want to make mention of we went and visited those locations. One of them that we visited was Willowbrook. And since then, I have had conversations. Willowbrook is is under Dryden Fiber. I'm sorry, Dryden Apartments and Realty. Kayla Lane. I talked with her about this. All the folks that are in that facility have their own internet service. I think there's over 50 of them. I had no idea that was something that we could actually tap into, but she said that all those people in there have their own internet connections, and we have the ability to go there and sign those people up. But again, we don't have the fiber to that location yet. So that's one of the things I believe that Vantage is working on.
That's right. That's a good one. 50. Yeah, I think that right now they all have Spectrum. They each pay their own Spectrum bill from their unit directly to Spectrum. So we want that level of relationship. Each individual tenant can decide if they want fiber and buy right from us.
And I think beyond that, we have I think there's 59 different renter locations where we're working with or have worked with somebody to get them signed on the agreements, which the agreements, for the most part, people just are okay with signing them. But every once in a while, we run into somebody that just says, no, we're not signing that. So, but it's unusual. Most people are willing to sign those so that their tenants can get the service from us.
Yeah, we
Any
should
other
drill down in
questions?
that, Tracy. It's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if we only have 33 of the 58 or 59 that are out there, it seems like a lot of, it's at least, 25 customers, and some of those might be multi units. We should figure out like what we can do to get them over to our side. I talked to a property owner from Lansing who has a house in Freeville in the green zone, and they were like, sign me up. Like, I want my tenant to have this. Send me everything now, and I will get the paperwork filled out and signed off. So when they do want it, they're already ready. They don't have to hit that. Like, that's the kind of, engagement we want from the property owners, that they want the service for their tenants because it's going to be more affordable, faster, all the things. Maybe we have to talk to some of the existing property owners and have them like make a statement that we can give to the ones that are on hold. So like, here's my, I was unsure about the agreement. I signed it. What I found is there's no issues with this agreement. What they're doing is way less intrusive than anything that Verizon, Spectrum, Frontier would do to my house. And it's a local business. I trust them. You should sign this thing too.
And I would agree with that. And if somebody signs up, and they're a renter, but they're not in the green zone, I go, and there some of those that are part of that 58 are those kind of locations. I go ahead and try to get that agreement signed ahead of time so that when they finally do get in the green zone, we can go forward. a lot of them are like, what's the big deal? Why are we hurrying? You can't even do it yet. So, yeah. But we can work on that. I agree. We should get these things signed ahead of time as much as possible so that we can move forward when the green zone becomes green.
Has there been any progress on the law that would allow us to act like how Spectrum does and Verizon and the telephone companies? I think Dan.
I have no idea.
Dan was working on that to some degree. I'm going to put Dan on the spot.
So you're talking about the legislation that we wanted, Anna, about
Yeah.
multifamily?
That's correct. Yeah. So
Yeah, they have all the lit on this, the background, and I sent it to her chief of staff about 3 weeks ago. They're very interested, but I have not heard back whether they got it in the budget, which is how we've got previous legislation passed. She tucks it in the budget. However, they'll probably be in session into June. We might get the budget any day now, but I think this current legislature seems to stick around a little longer to do cleanup legislation, so I can follow up with them.
yeah,
That'd be great.
Yeah. The step we don't have to do, that would be nice. So
We
Yeah,
just
they
wanna
seemed
be-
really interested. Again, when I reached out, they're like, "Oh, wow, we meant to do this," kind of thing. So I'm hoping they didn't drop the ball.
It
Yeah,
would
it'd be good
be,
to find
you're
out.
right, Graham. It would be huge if we could just bypass that step and people sign up, we just go take care of them like we do with everybody else. So yeah, that'd be great.
And we don't want special treatment. We want the same treatment that Verizon, Frontier,
Right.
Spectrum already has.
Yeah.
And whether it's part of the argument or not, New York State is spending hundreds of millions of dollars for these MIP grants, and the last mile is getting to these rental houses, and then we're stuck.
yeah, and it's
And,
adding costs to the whole project doing this too. So it's not like
adds time, it adds delays. It means the individual customers are
Yeah.
unable to get the lower cost service and faster service.
That's something I'll point out. Just remind, we can't fulfill the obligations of the state grant without this, and I'll just say this is, it's ironic, or it's a contradiction in state policy. We're trying to achieve these goals, and you're holding our hands back.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And Josh needs to get on them too about that. But we've made Josh aware of this 2 years ago.
No, this has been going on since August of
don't know.
23 at least.
Mm.
All right, thanks, Tracy. This is the inventory list. I'll send this deck over so you can review this if you want. This is what we have for inventory. We're as Tracy said, we're well stocked. Andrew, who's not here from Netegrity on customer service, 102 calls. It's a lower number of calls this month, but that's because we've just not had the green zone burst of new inbounds. Generally pretty quiet, even though it was 102. Any questions for them that I can pass on customer service?
I did want to mention, Dave, that in case anybody cares, we're doing installations like some of these are getting done the week after people sign up. We're moving really quickly. Clarity is really moving quickly on getting installations completed. So, and they have told Netegrity, somebody calls in and they want service next week, sign them up, we can get it done. So
Yeah, it's good. There's I might have time for it in this meeting because we have about 20 more minutes. Clarity Connect has a software platform that they've developed for scheduling that Netegrity can go directly into to find places on the calendar where they can put customers in without phone calls, additional emails. They have direct access to the schedule of the Clarity Connect installers. So it makes this company that's really spread out with all these different subcontractors becoming a little bit more united through software.
great.
A few HR admin insurance items. Amanda, you want to cover some of these?
As we mentioned last month, we were looking to hire a part-time accounting person to help support. There's a lot of reporting, financial reporting, but also reporting, and obviously I still have to take care of the town too. So We did post a position. It's on the civil service website until Monday, the 5th. I'm gonna hopefully be reviewing applicants late next week. Hoping to find someone with some, at least definitely some financial experience. So if you know anybody, feel free to pass it on. We are expecting to be part-time the first year to 2 years and probably would move to full-time later. And it would be a town employee. So retirement, health insurance at one full-time, etc. The Department of Labor Administration Workforce Utilization Report is an annual report that we have to provide as part of the MIP grant. We had to request all the subcontractors to report job titles and demographic information for the project through March of 2025. All the subcontractors did finish submitting their reports yesterday, and they've been sent on to Department of Labor, so that requirement has been fulfilled for that. And we are working on getting insurance for just Dryden Fiber, because the town, although we are covered generally under the town's insurance, concerns of, as we have all this infrastructure, is not specific to the town. Insurance is not specific to it. And so we're concerned that we want to make sure that we have insurance that covers the POPs and the fiber and etc. So we are, we have some insurance companies we reached out to. It has kind of fallen low on the list. April was a busy month for me with reporting to the state for other things. So we are continuing the process of applying for insurance for Dryden Fiber directly.
Thank you. Any questions on HR admin insurance? All right, legal and policy, another report. So we talked about what to do about outages back in November. There was an outage for 35 of our customers the weekend before Thanksgiving. We talked about updating our service agreement with our customers, with both the residential and the commercial customers. So I sent that to our attorneys. They sent back changes. I'll send you over the draft as well as this document. And the highlighted is the additions to the agreement for these. So this force majeure events exclude all these outage things that could be a cause. Fire, flood, storms, all the way through. In addition, include the following. We're not going to give someone credit for the outage if they fail to provide us adequate access for facilities for testing and repair. If they fail to provide access to customer premises as reasonably required to enable us to fulfill the obligations of the service. Fail to take remedial action in relation to the service. Any act or omission which causes Dryden Fiber to be unable to meet the SLAs, or interoperability of customer equipment or applications. If they have their software that brings down their service, we're not going to credit them if they do something on their side. Finally, exclude outages during the service window, Sunday to Saturday, 12 to 5 a.m. local time. And exclude instances where the customer requests that Dryden Fiber leave the trouble ticket open. If they have an outage that they have caused and they say, well, don't come repair it, they don't get credit for their outage if we can't go in and repair it because they said don't repair it.
So Dave, for the last outage that was caused because of storms, we wouldn't have had to pay out with this new force majeure? Or
it does say fire, flood, storms. So the one on that this one is response to in November, the ice storm, snowstorm, we would not have to have paid out. Now, we've hardened the system down substantially since then. Just hands-on, knowing more about what we have to do if there's an outage, taking care of things on the software side as it happened in that outage back on March 16th. at the same time, like there are some things that could happen that that would be out of our control.
Yeah, so this basically protects us, but if we chose to do something, we always could. So, I mean,
Yes.
yeah, so, but it does protect us from the storm. Because the other one was storm related too, but the storm was up in, it was because of the wire got up near Rochester someplace. So it was a storm related outage on a high line. So
Right. Oh, that last May, the outage happened the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday before Memorial Day. Yeah. This is the recommended list from Phillips Lytle, our broadband attorney. It is in line with other service agreements that other ISPs have. Why don't you sit with us for the next 2 weeks? We get together on the May 16th meeting that Friday. We can do that. You'll use that time for more discussion and a vote on this policy change. The other one, Tony did some work on researching a change to our outage calculation. Right now, it starts at 2 hours with these substantial discounts, which means that 1,920 minutes, you get 50% of your monthly service fee back. The first thing Tony did was say the minimum was no longer 2 hours, where it's right now it's 20 minutes, bring it up to 4 hours. Tony, do you want to talk through the options? I put them on this slide, just on this slide. I also emailed you, everyone on the committee, the more lengthy version of Tony's recommendations, options.
Yeah, and if you're looking at, I looked at a whole bunch of different ways that companies were calculating this stuff, and I didn't find one that started at 2 hours. We were the only one starting at 2 hours. That's kind of one of the things that I noted, at least of the ones I looked at. And our percentages were, way high for shorter periods of time than what we did. And so I kind of looked at it from the standpoint. I do like the idea of doing a percentage for a block of time, because you think about the chances of us having a 72-hour plus outage are pretty slim. You know what I mean? And I just think that it makes it easier if you just know that, okay, if the outage is this long, then it's this percent, right? But essentially what I did is one option where it starts at, if it's between 4 and 72 hours, it's 10%. The only difference between A and B is if it's between 4 and 36, it's 5%, and then 36 to 72 is 10%. And that 36 number, the 72 hours is essentially 10% of a month, if you think about it, right? So it's because there's roughly 720 hours in a month. I mean, you could take this to minute levels if you wanted to, but you could also do it in fractions of an hour, like they were out 3.5 hours or something along those lines. And then the last one is just a direct credit for any outage over 4 hours based on the amount of time they were out. And that's calculating a per hour, an average per hour rate by each of the plans, which I did in that document. And so if you're out 25 hours, it's just whatever their plan is times 25. I think that makes it more difficult on the person applying the credits.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier if you just say that, okay, if it's under 72 hours, it's a certain percent, if it's between 36 and 72 hours, it's 10%. If it's between 4 and 36, it's 5%. I just think those are easier to calculate and less labor. And I included some dollar amounts in there. We're not talking about huge dollar credits here in most cases, right? It's we're talking about a few bucks. So
yeah, I mean the average customer is paying $50 a month, so it's $1 a day.
yeah, roughly.
So if we possibly hit a 3-day outage, 72 hours, that's like $5.
Yeah, exactly right. So
On the percentage on the option 2 option.
Yeah. So it's just kind of the way I calculate, because I just the way we had it. I mean, with these were getting pretty quickly to 40 or 50% of bill, and I
Right.
just, I mean, I think it's great that we're doing this good customer service, but on the other hand, I think we're giving away more money than we need to. Now, with the other policy change, really, if you look at the way that force majeure policy is written, I don't know if so far if we would have had an outage that we would have had to pay anything for. I don't know if there's I don't know if there's been an outage where any of this would kick in.
Yep.
We can analyze that and give an update.
And that concerns me a little bit, because I and I think Graham and I have both mentioned this in the past, is that I like the idea that we are providing good customer service and that people are getting, because some of the other things are, and I mentioned in the document, is in order to get a credit, many companies, pretty much all companies that I looked at, require that the customer request a credit. They don't just automatically give it, right? It's the customer has to actually contact us and ask for a credit. And in some cases, they won't give credits if the customer didn't report the outage. Or they start the timer with when the customer reports the outage, right? So there's, I kind of like the idea of us being a little bit different in that aspect, but on the other hand, my sort of town hat says, what, let's not give away money where we don't need to, right? But
Well, I would say, Tony, I think I would lean on being better than the competition.
That's exactly.
I think we can easily do it, and I don't think it's going to cost us that much.
Right.
So let's just be a little better.
Yeah, and in that document where I put the recommended policies, I mean, that was one of the things I put in it, that no, a customer doesn't have to have reported the outage in order to get a credit, and that they don't even necessarily have to request the credit, right? It's
right.
I'd like to see us be a bit better, but that's just a personal sort of preference, and I certainly, this is a business, so we have to, and do what's best for the business, right? So it's
well,
anyway.
It lets us differentiate. Let's put it that way. So,
Yeah.
And Spectrum is particularly poor about this. So
They are.
And so I think let's use it as an advertising differentiation. And I think it's probably not going to cost us very much to do that.
Right.
And I would definitely err on making it easier for Amanda to be able to give the fee. So let's make it easy on that end as well. So
Right. Because I just
easier. So
the idea of having to calculate by hourly rate every credit just sounds a little onerous to me, right? It's certainly the most accurate way to issue a credit, but I just think it would be, I kind of like, personally, I lean towards option 1B, right? That's kind of where I think we should go with these credits, but that's just my opinion.
The only other thing I thought of is that we're giving a different level of service to businesses. They get a priority on the us fixing things for them.
Yes.
Something goes wrong. Maybe want to put a different rate in there for them because it's probably impacting their business more. But
that's a good idea. That could be another incentive to sign up for the business tier.
Yeah, and I did mention in that document that pretty much every company had different policies for businesses versus residential, right? So I didn't do that. I didn't calculate those out differently, but I agree with you that, I mean, certainly a business being out, a service for a business being out is a different impact than, I mean, their credits would be higher anyway because except for the basic tier or the standard tier, they're paying more than the residential ones anyway. But so the credits would be a little bit higher, but not a whole lot, right?
No,
I agree with you. I think it might be better to do something a little different on the business side.
Do you want to take the 2 weeks to review everything, think about this? Like I said, I'll send the whole deck around to the committee, and then Tony, if you want to make a motion with what your recommendation is after more discussion, And that
At the
way
next meeting, is that what you're thinking?
at the next meeting in 2
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah, that's fine.
If you have other ideas, suggestions between now and then, you can work directly with Tony or just bring those topics. It'll be, near the top of the agenda with everything else that might come up in the next 2 weeks, but we want to get this moving because it's been on the agenda for about 6 months.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks a lot, Tony. It looks great. So
There's a lot of good stuff in there. Thanks for saving us a lot of time. All right. Kind of legal, kind of policy, kind of a third category, which is the CRM. The operations team met on April 23rd and discussed using the Clarity Connect scheduling and messaging platform to help with sign-up requests. Currently, this is managed through Integrity's SharePoint and an online form, and then our billing software, which Amanda uses, which is managed by a third-party cloud-based billing software. We're going to get everyone around with service requests, installation, billing all together sometime this quarter. This is basically seeing if what Clarity already has for software can function for us at a reasonable cost. It does a lot of stuff. We have some different tools out there, but try to bring it down, because right now, if you sign up for service, you're typing it into a form. Then Integrity is typing or copying and pasting that into another form for Clarity for them to go do the installations. Then that information is being retyped a third time by Amanda for billing. And every time that we're retyping anything, there's just opportunities for errors. It'd be great to have a request service form that has an address checker. So it's not just a blank form people can fill out. It says like, oh, did you mean this address? That type of technology would also be good. So we're going to get together sometime this quarter between now and the end of June to look at what are all the features we need. How do we use software? Obviously, a relational database is going to be a lot better than a spreadsheet. It'll help Tracy and the scheduling team that's just using a Excel file to manage all these requests.
yeah, Dave, I would ask Vantif if they have any, best of breed or that kind of thing for our size of operation.
We'll make sure they're included in this conversation.
Yeah. So
marketing highlights requests way over here on the right side for May, 42 requests this month. That's more than last month. We only had 34. The pace of those inbounds over the last 10 days has also increased over the pace for the month of March. And we think that's because of the postcards. So door-to-door campaign, we did that. We talked about that. In April, around mid-month, we sent out 800 postcards to all residents in the green zone that had not yet signed up for service. Only about 30 of those bounced back as people have moved or the address is not deliverable. And as I said, positive trend line for service requests, including up till yesterday and today. So we know that people who got those postcards were like, oh yeah, I'm in the green zone, I should sign up. So we've seen a little bit of an increase, and basically a better percentage of increase of people who signed up who are in the green zone versus previous months. So in general, we get a certain number of signups that are just not yet in the green zone. A higher percentage of green zone signups happened over the last 30 days than in previous months. It doesn't mean that we've solved all the problems for marketing. We can do more things for outreach. There's been a little bit of social media. We did have a blurb in the email newsletter that went out yesterday. The truck magnets are now in the Vantage vehicles as they drive around. We could probably spend some time and talk about marketing and penetration and a goal for take rate when we get together on the 16th. Any questions on marketing, data, or these items we did this month?
No, you answered my question from earlier.
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
All right. The last thing for marketing, maybe even for the whole report, Dairy Day is coming up on June 14th. It's about 6 weeks away. There's a parade, and then there's the festival in Montgomery Park. So for a parade ideas, Amanda and I just kind of sat around talking about what we could do. So give out stickers. We have the Dryden Fiber postcards. We could hand those out. We get more stickers. We could get other swag if we want to be in the parade. I do know that last year by June 1st, they sold out or filled up the parade, so we couldn't get in. We could use my car. I asked Dan if we could use one of his cars. He has some nice cars, nice fast car, fast internet. We could also see if we have our subcontractors use their vehicles in the parade, like the bucket trucks or the Vantage vehicle. Regarding the festival, if we did table there like we did for the community day back in, I guess, earlier this month or in April, we could bring our pop-up banner and show the service map. What's the general sense of the Public Broadband Committee for participating in the parade or the festival, either or both?
One of the challenges you have with Dairy Day is that many of the people who are involved in Dairy Day are involved in multiple ways.
Totally.
So, for example, I'm already committed to barbecuing chicken that day in the park for Rotary. So, so I will be there. I could come over and hang out at the tent, during the course of the day if we had a if we had a table there, or the town had a table and wanted to include. I mean, the town, Dan, doesn't the town, or Jason, doesn't the town usually have a table? Like the rail trail usually has a table and all that.
I mean, there's one. I mean, not. We haven't really had like a catch-all table at all.
Okay, so
It's
like
really just been rail trail.
I mean, Rail Trail's been there. I know Dryden Democrats have been there and Dryden Republicans have been there, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, getting people to man it.
Yeah.
And they're all, they're not.
Right.
Unless Bambi like wants to do one for the clerk's office.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
We've talked about a consolidated table, and I think that's something we should do. If we have the rail trail, we have the clerk's office, maybe we have rec. I mean, we should have like Dryden Corner, or
Yeah, but like for rec, Marty's already involved in stuff at the fair. I mean, Dan, so someone else would have to be there, and we don't have anybody else.
Well, I'm just throwing out groups that could present. I don't even know if she can either. But if we've got Dryden Fiber, we've got Bambi, we've got the rail trail, they should all be together.
Great.
Either way, yeah. But I mean, the point, I guess the point, Dave, is I would love to help out, but I'm involved in a couple of different organizations, and Dairy Day is one of those things where everybody's looking for volunteers.
Right.
So that gets a little tricky.
I mean, the lowest cost impact would just be parade only,
Right.
not tabling. One or two vehicles with the magnets on them.
Yeah.
Hand out
Yeah.
stuff from the car if we can't get more than like a few people. I mean, I don't mind walking the parade. I think we kind of need the billboard of the magnets on either a Vantage or Clarity or Dan's car, so people know why the hell is this guy walking around handing out these little postcards. That doesn't really help the product as much. I'm available that day. I could do the festival. I guess that's a term I made up for the part in the park. I could do that part too if there's other people in the town doing it. Is there a point person on the trail rec clerk side, Dan?
Sure. Alice for the trail. And then Bambi or Lauren could answer any questions about whether they're setting up shop.
Okay, I'll follow up with them. Would you be okay if I just registered for the parade for, even if it's just Dan and Dave and Dan's car with the Dryden Fiber magnets on?
Yeah. Do we have any say on where we are in the parade? Because I like to march as well. So
Oh, right.
my name's on the
I can drive
ballot.
your car.
No, you can't. But if we go late and we get the
I can find
officials
out.
up front,
Well, yeah,
that would be cool. I could double dip.
I do know that Marianne Sumner was in the parade 3 times because Tony talked about being in multiple things. Like, so she did the whole parade and then went back 3 different times, 3 different groups in 1 year. That might be the record. So it is possible.
That's
Let me
possible.
find out, Dan.
Yeah.
We
What
could,
was cool
request going
was-
at the end.
What was cool was Dan saying, "No, you can't."
Have you seen him drive?
Come on.
I've actually ridden with him.
That's why he's not on camera. So that's all.
I'm not
I
on
had.
camera because I'm afraid it will ruin my internet connection here.
Oh, that's all I have for this month. A lot of stuff happened in April. Obviously, a lot of things are still up in the air with reporting back to New York State and the GDA as far as like getting those things done today, and a lot of stuff moving forward. We will meet again on May 16th. We'll talk about some of these policy SLA items as well as where we are with the rest of the project. And I'll find out where we can be on the parade, Dan, and see if that can work.
It sounds like a good idea. I mean, sure.
It's just, I mean, basically free visibility for the project.
I was gonna get the car painted this year, but the tariffs drove up the cost. So, seriously.
Aren't those on hold? Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good week. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.